When the internet began, bulletin board services, or BBS, became the first online communities of the so-called information superhighway. Using their phone lines, people logged in from all over America to talk about sports, games, movies, and on one BBS in particular, share their ghost stories. Over time, those communities all went dark, except for one lone server that continues to operate somewhere in an unknown part of Pennsylvania's Rust Belt. A relic of the 1990s, veiled in mystery, it is a digital archive of humanity's strangest encounters with the unknown, as told by the people who experienced them. My name is Brandon Schexnayder, and you are listening to Fear Daily.
Subject, it watches. User, StuckShuck33. Posted, April 14th, 1999.
I used to think sleep paralysis was just some weird brain glitch, a dream spilling into reality, leftover fragments in the meat of your mind. Maybe that's what it is for most people. A fluke, a one-off. You wake up, see something in the dark, can't move, then it's gone. Harmless. But that night, one night, I learned that sometimes it's not a glitch. Sometimes you don't wake up into a dream. Sometimes something else wakes up into you. It was a Tuesday. Graveyard shift at the Shell on Route 2 had been its usual kind of awful. 3 hours of nothing, a guy trying to buy Marlboros with Canadian coins, and a tweaker who argued with a hot dog roller. I got home just after 7 a.m. and went straight to the basement, my little bachelor cave under my mom's house. Same futon, same lamp with the wobbly neck, same busted TV with the pink line through it. The place always smelled faintly like mildew and something older. Not rot, not exactly, just old, heavy, still, like something had been sitting in the corners waiting. I didn't even bother undressing, just kicked off my boots and collapsed into the futon, letting exhaustion do its thing. I must have dozed off within minutes because the next thing I remember was being awake. Not groggy, not sleepy, just fully, completely aware and unable to move a goddamn thing. My eyes were open, facing the ceiling. The water stain above me looked like the profile of a wolf. I'd stared at it 1,000 times, but this time the edges were wrong. The ceiling shimmered faintly, like heat rising off pavement. My chest felt tight. I tried to lift my arms, shift my legs, scream, anything, but I couldn't even twitch. My heart pounded, but my lungs felt trapped in a vice. I was stuck, frozen. And then I heard it. Click, click, click. Wet, deliberate clicking sound, like someone sucking at their teeth. It came from the corner of the room near the old TV. I tried to look, strained my eyes as far left as they'd go, and that's when I saw it. A tall, narrow shape, darker than the dark, standing so still it looked unreal. It wasn't a man, but it had a man's silhouette. Shoulders too narrow, arms too long, head cocked at an unnatural angle like it had been broken and never healed. It had no eyes, no face, but I felt it watching me, a thick, oily awareness that rolled across my body like molasses. The clicking grew louder, faster, then it moved. It didn't walk. It shifted, like skipping frames in a video. One moment it was across the room, the next it was crouched over me, inches from my face. Its head rotated slowly, upside down like an owl until I could see what passed for a face, just folds of glossy black skin and rows of tiny uneven teeth. Then it opened its mouth. Nothing came out. No scream, no breath, just silence so deep it made my ears ring. And then, in that void, it leaned down and placed one cold, bone-thin finger against my sternum. Pain was instant. Like it was reaching through skin and bone, digging for something. I wanted to cry out. I would have given anything to scream, but my voice was buried somewhere I couldn't reach, and still, that finger pushed, slow and steady, until I thought my heart would burst. I could feel it, really feel it, pressing on the cartilage between ribs, the tendons tightening under my skin like guitar strings being turned too tight. My entire body screamed silently while it kept pushing, like it was testing how much I could take before something inside gave way. Then, just as sudden as it started, it was gone. I gasped and sat bolt upright, coughing, sobbing, drenched in sweat. My whole body buzzed like it had been electrocuted. I turned on the lamp and stared at the corner. Nothing there, just the busted TV blinking 12 o'clock, over and over and over. My chest burned like I'd been punched. I looked down and I swear to God, there was a bruise forming, one long, narrow mark, center of my chest, like someone had poked me with a cattle prod. I didn't go back to sleep. I got down to half a bottle of Pepsi, paced the basement, chain smoked 3 Marlboros. The sun was up and everything was normal. My mom's footsteps above me, the hum of the fridge. I told myself it was a dream. Stress, exhaustion, whatever, but I couldn't shake the weight of it. That thing hadn't just watched me. It had touched me. And worse, it had wanted something. At noon, I collapsed on the couch upstairs, sun blazing through the windows. Safety, light. I figured if it only came at night, I could sneak in a few hours, and for a while, it worked. I drifted into a shallow, twitchy nap, but then I woke up again, still frozen. This time, I wasn't alone. There was something behind the couch. I could hear it breathing, shallow, irregular, like someone learning how for the first time. I couldn't turn around, couldn't see it, but I knew it had followed me, that it didn't care about night or day. It lived in the cracks between sleep and waking, and it was getting better at slipping through. I heard the floor creak, then the soft pad of bare feet on hardwood. I strained to move, to scream, to do something, but I was locked in again, a prisoner in my own skin. Then I felt it kneel beside me, something pressed against my neck, cold, sharp, like a nail or a claw, and it whispered something into my ear. I don't know the language, it wasn't English, wasn't anything human, but the sound of it made my skin crawl. My eyes rolled back. I wanted to vomit. It was like a song made of insects and static. I could feel it threading into my brain, unraveling something I didn't know was loose. And worst of all, there was a part of me that understood, that heard that sound and remembered it, like a melody you forgot until it crawled back out of the dark. Then I woke up, for real this time, coughing, retching onto the floor. My mom was standing there with a basket of laundry, staring at me like I'd grown another head. I told her I was just sick, that I needed rest. She nodded, but I could tell she didn't believe me. That night, I slept with every light in the basement on. I taped a butcher knife under the futon. I turned the TV to static just for the noise, and still, it came back. This time, it didn't watch from the corner. It sat on my chest like a throne. It reached into my mouth with one long finger and tapped the roof like it was tuning an instrument. Then it leaned in close and its mouth opened wide, impossibly wide, and inside was me. Not a reflection. Me. Tied to a chair, screaming. I couldn't look away. I watched my own face twist in agony, heard my own voice echo from the dark, and in that moment, I knew it wasn't showing me a future or a memory. It was showing me what I already was. I passed out before it could show me the rest, if you call it that. In the morning, I quit my job. I packed my car. I drove west without telling anyone. I haven't slept through the night since. I don't close my eyes without something sharp nearby. I leave the lights on. I play the radio loud, but it still comes. Not every night, not always when I expect it, but it's there. Behind the silence, behind the clicks, watching me sleep. And one night, I know it won't just watch. It'll stay.
Subject, Free Dirt. User, L0N3 Heart 71. Posted, June 7th, 1998.
I told Hank not to bring that dirt home. Told him 3 times, maybe 4, but he just grinned that big dumb grin, the one that makes you forgive things you shouldn't, and said, "Free's free, babe." He was proud of himself, too, like some kind of scavenger king, tracking down cast-off scraps from the construction site and using them to build our dream yard. A place where the kids could play, where we might finally plant grass thick enough to cover the red clay scars behind the house. The pile of fill dirt sat in a crooked hump near the back fence. The neighbor's dog wouldn't go near it. Our daughter Lila, who was 6, going on 60, said it smelled like wet breath. I laughed at the time, but later, when I stood beside it with a laundry basket under my arm, I smelled it too. A kind of rot that Wasn't quite animal, wasn't quite dirt. I told myself it was probably just something dead mixed in, a raccoon or a possum scooped up with the load. It happens, but I didn't go back out there again after dark. Hank spread the dirt the next Saturday. Shirt off, red from the sun, grunting and cussing with every shovel load. Said it was lumpy, filled with rocks and sticks and something hard like concrete, but not. He cracked one of the shovel blades trying to break a chunk up, tossed it aside, and kept going. That night, his back locked up so bad he couldn't roll over in bed. I rubbed it for him and tried not to say I told you so. I didn't want to fight. I was too tired. We both were. The first sinkhole appeared 2 days later. A circle, maybe 2 feet wide, just collapsed overnight in the middle of the yard where Lila's tire swing used to be. The rope had snapped off the tree in the last storm and we hadn't put it back up. Lucky, maybe. I stepped out on the porch with my coffee and saw the hole. The dirt around the edge looked soft, like cake batter. I leaned forward, squinting, and I swear it was breathing, just barely, rising and falling like something was pushing up from underneath. And then nothing. Just stillness and that same sour, wet breath stink curling up into the morning air. We filled it in, of course. What else could we do? Hank said the dirt just needed time to settle. I agreed, but only because I didn't want to hear him get defensive again. It was easier that way. That night, something scraped against the floorboards under our bed, real slow, like claws. We live in an old place, up on cinder blocks with a half crawl space under the master bedroom. Rats and possums and God knows what else have nested under there before. I figured that's all it was, but the sound came back the next night and the next, and then the dog disappeared. Lila named her Rosie, a little mutt with wiry gray fur and one bad eye. She'd sleep under the porch most days and follow Lila like a shadow, but on Thursday, she didn't come when called. Hank went out with a flashlight, muttering about coyotes, came back an hour later, pale and sweaty, said he'd seen footprints, barefoot, around the old stump near the fence line. Too big for Lila, he said. Too narrow for me. I asked if they were human. I don't know, he said, and left it at that. The next hole opened up near the kitchen window. I watched it form. I was doing dishes, staring out at the yard like always, and the ground just fell in on itself. No noise, no fanfare, like someone letting the air out of a balloon. Later that night, Lila said something came to her window. She didn't cry or carry on, just said it matter-of-factly, like she was telling me about the weather. It stood there with no eyes. It was all wet. We didn't let her sleep in her own room after that. And I started having dreams, or at least I thought they were dreams. I'd wake up in a sweat, convinced the house was sinking, sliding backward into the dirt like a ship going under. I'd hear groaning in the walls, something thick and wet moving behind the plaster. Sometimes I'd sit up and see Hank standing at the window, just staring out. I'd ask him what he was doing, and he wouldn't answer. Next morning, he wouldn't even remember being there. One night, I went outside. I don't even know why. I just felt like I had to. The porch light flickered, then went out completely as I stepped into the yard. The dirt was moving. Not like wind or settling, I mean moving, alive. The surface bulged in slow ripples, and I swear I saw handprints rise and sink back down. One rose up near the garden and pressed flat against the soil. Fingers spread, long, wrong fingers. I backed up, my breath caught in my throat. Then I saw it, half emerged like a fetus crowning from the earth. A head, misshapen, coated in wet clay and something like moss. No mouth, no eyes, but I could feel it seeing me. It slid back under without a sound. I ran inside, locked the door, and didn't tell Hank. What was I supposed to say? The next day, he brought more dirt home. I lost it then. Screamed at him in front of Lila, said he was putting us all in danger. He just stared at me like I'd grown horns. "It's just dirt," he said. "You think I brought home a monster?" Then he laughed. That laugh broke something in me, maybe in both of us. That night, the final hole opened up under the porch, and the porch collapsed. We heard it happen, the groaning wood, the sudden crack, the sharp yelp from underneath. Hank ran out with a flashlight, and I followed close behind. What we found wasn't rosy, not anymore, just something that wore her shape like a costume. All folded wrong, stitched up in sinew and thorns, and standing beside it, tall and silent in the moonlight, was something else. And it looked like Hank. Same build, same face, but smeared in mud. Mouthless, eyes like black river stones. It stared at him with its head tilted as if waiting to be let inside. Hank raised the shovel. The thing raised its arm. They mirrored each other, two halves of the same thought, until Hank lunged forward and struck it in the head. The thing didn't fall, didn't bleed, just crumbled into wet soil and roots. We didn't sleep that night. We didn't speak. In the morning, I packed a bag for Lila and drove her to my sister's 2 counties over. When I came back, Hank was digging. He said he needed to find the source, said he couldn't let it spread. I begged him to stop, but he wouldn't listen, just kept digging. I watched from the window as the sun set. He stood waist deep in the hole. It was bigger now, more like a crater. I called to him. He looked up, smiled that grin again, and said, "It's okay now, I understand." And then he sank. Not like someone falling, like someone being pulled. I screamed, I ran, but by the time I reached the hole, it was empty. Just a shallow pool of mud and a shovel sticking out like a gravestone. They never found him. They never believed me, but I know what happened. And I know what's coming. Because that night, I heard something scrape under the bed again, and it was humming Hank's favorite song.
Fear Daily is an independent podcast hosted by Brandon Schexnayder and written by Brennan Storr, with Joanna Smith serving as the consulting editor, audio production by Rachel Boyd, and sound design by Southern Gothic Media. This podcast is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are either products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to real events or locations, is entirely coincidental. Ad-free versions of Fear Daily are available now on your favorite podcast apps. For more information, visit feardaily.com. But move fast, before the server goes offline.